The lawyer's office smelled faintly of old paper and coffee. I remember sitting there, my hands trembling as I clutched the edge of my purse. Across the polished desk, the lawyer slid a folder toward me and said softly, "Mrs. Carter, you should see this." My eyes fell on the signature. My own, in ink I didn't remember writing. That was the day I realized my marriage wasn't built on love. It was built on lies. Before continue, please subscribe our channel and like our video. My name is Linda Carter. And for most of my adult life, I believed I was living a dream. I met Mark when I was 28, back when I worked as an art teacher at a small community center in Ohio. He was charming, successful, the kind of man who made you feel safe just by standing next to him. Mark said I reminded him of home, and I loved how ambitious he was. When we got married, it was a small wedding by the lake. White roses, laughter, soft music. Everyone said we looked perfect together. We bought a house. Well, Mark called it our starter home, though it was far bigger than anything I'd ever dreamed of. He handled the mortgage, the finances, everything, and I trusted him completely. As the years passed, his business grew. We moved again, this time, into a mansion outside of town. I quit teaching to help him manage events and his schedule. I told myself we were partners. But little by little, I noticed something. Mark stopped saying we. He started saying my company, my house, my future. When I brought it up one night over dinner, he laughed. "Oh, Linda," he said, pouring himself another glass of wine. "You know I mean our house. You don't have to worry about these things." So I didn't. Not for years. The first crack appeared. When my father passed away, he left me a small inheritance, his life savings from decades at the post office. It wasn't much by Mark's standards, but to me, it was my father's last gift. I wanted to keep it separate. Maybe reopen the art center one day, but Mark insisted. "Let me invest it for you," he said. "You'll thank me later." Reluctantly, I signed the papers he brought home that night. He said it was just a transfer. A year later, when I asked about it, he said, "It's tied up in property. Don't worry, it's still yours." But something in the way he avoided my eyes made my stomach twist. Still, I pushed the thought away. Because marriage is about trust, right? That's what I kept telling myself until the day I found the envelope. It was a Tuesday morning. Mark had left early for a meeting, and I was cleaning his study when I noticed a stack of letters under a file. One envelope had my name on it, Mrs. Linda Carter. Inside was a bank statement, my father's account, the one Mark said was safe, but it was empty, completely drained. I sat on the floor, staring at the numbers, unable to breathe. I called Mark. He didn't answer. When he came home that night, I confronted him. "Mark, where's the inheritance money?" He sighed. "Linda, don't start. I told you, I used it for us." "For us?" I said. "It's gone, Mark." He shrugged. "You're overreacting. I paid bills, business expenses. It's all the same household. But deep down, I knew something had changed. Over the next few months, he became distant. More nights at work. Sometimes I could smell perfume on his shirts, not mine. When I asked questions, he'd turn it around. "You're imagining things," he said. "Maybe if you focused on the house instead of snooping." It was the first time he'd ever spoken to me that way. Then came the second envelope. This one from the county office. Property documents for our home. Except my name wasn't on the deed anymore, just his. I froze when I showed him. He smiled. "I had to make a few adjustments for tax reasons," he said. "Don't worry, sweetheart." But I didn't sleep that night. For the first time in 15 years, I felt like a guest in my own home. A few weeks later, Mark said we needed to stop by the lawyer's office for routine documents. He was in a rush, claimed he had a flight. As always, I trusted him. I didn't read the pages. I just signed where he pointed. But the lawyer, Mr. Harris, hesitated. He looked at me, then at Mark, then back at me again. When Mark stepped out to take a call, Mr. Harris leaned in. "Mrs. Carter, do you know what you just signed?" I frowned. "Mark said it was for his company." He shook his head. "It's not. It's a transfer of ownership. You just signed over your share of the house, and several accounts, and to your husband, my heart." Stopped. The room felt like it was spinning. That was the moment the illusion of love shattered completely. I went home that day, pretending nothing had happened. I cooked dinner, smiled, listened as Mark talked about another business trip. But inside, I was calm, calmer than I'd ever been. The next morning, I called Mr. Harris. He agreed to help me quietly review everything Mark had filed under my name. For weeks, we went through documents one by one, and what we found was devastating. Mark had been moving assets, setting up accounts, and preparing for a divorce, one that would leave me with almost nothing. I didn't cry, not this time. Instead, I gathered my own evidence. Every text, every receipt, every email. Mr. Harris helped me file a counter motion to freeze our joint accounts. When Mark was away, I changed the locks on the guest house. I took copies of everything. It wasn't revenge. It was survival. 3 weeks later, Mark came home, furious. "What the hell is this?" he shouted. "You froze my accounts?" I looked him straight in the eye. "Our accounts," I said quietly. "You were preparing to leave me with nothing." He laughed bitterly. "You can't prove that." I opened the folder I'd been holding. Inside were copies of every document, every forged signature. Behind me, Mr. Harris stepped forward. "Actually," he said, calm and steady, "she can." Mark's face went pale. There was no yelling, no drama, just silence, the kind that settles when truth finally fills the air. In the following weeks, everything Mark tried to take was restored. And though it wasn't easy, I walked away, with my name, my home, and my dignity. It's been almost 2 years now. The mansion feels different, quieter, but freer. I've gone back to teaching art again. My students remind me why I loved simple, honest things before my life became about contracts and signatures. Sometimes I still wonder if Mark ever loved me. But then I remember something my father used to say. Real love doesn't hide behind papers. That truth came late, but it came just in time. And if anyone watching this has ever felt small or powerless, just remember, silence is not weakness. Sometimes it's the sound of your strength returning. If my real-life story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe for more calm, emotional stories about love, lessons, and finding strength in the quietest moments.